all misty out here. I'm Reverend Kelly Isola. I think there's even a little sign that has my name on it. I'm a transitional minister, a transitional consultant, and I have been here a few times for this community. And this weekend I was here, and we were doing some congregational work, beginning sort of the processes, part of this whole transitional process that, for this community to begin discerning and creating and visioning who we've come here to be as individuals, who we've come here to be as a spiritual community. And so we started some of that work this weekend, and I know there's, if you were here at any time this weekend, could you stand up for me? Give yourselves a hand, please. It was some wonderful, wonderful work. There was laughter, and there was tears, and there was ahas, and there was, oh, holy crap moments. It's a spiritual term. I can get away with it because I don't have a lot of gray hair yet. Yet, I did say yet. And it was, for me, it was part of what the emotion that's alive right now for me, and what I want to talk about this morning. And it was, for me, it was very powerful. I so enjoy and resonate and come alive when I listen to people talk about their stories. And when I say story, I don't mean sometimes we have this definition of story like, oh, there they go again, I gotta listen to their story. And that's what goes on in my head. And I'm gonna assume the laughter means you're identifying. And, but that's not, when I say story, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that a story is our tapestry. It's the tapestry that we're weaving, that we're creating. It's our experience, and we get to give it a voice, and we get to speak it. It's how culture learns and discovers and creates its meaning and purpose, is through our stories. Look at any scripture from any faith tradition. The Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, Dhammapada, all of it, they're stories that give meaning and purpose to our lives. And that's part of what we started doing this weekend, and part of what we started connecting with was just our own stories. It wasn't about what's right and what's wrong. It wasn't about anything. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it really had very little to do with facts and more to do with just what was alive for us and what's true for us in our experience and how we view our experience through whatever lens we're using. Does that make sense? And yet sometimes our brain wants to go into what's right and what's wrong. Yes, this is true, that's not true. And when we do that, we miss the bigger picture. The entire Bible is basically one big, long myth. And myth isn't a bad thing. Myth isn't about whether it's factually true, but there's truth in myth, right? There's truth in stories. And by truth, I mean, again, not factual truth, but spiritual truth. That when we come together and we connect at the level of what's alive, what we called our fertile ground by the end of the day, I didn't do this in the last service, but I'm going to treat you guys to it now, is at the end of the day, we had near the end of the day, we did an impromptu kind of little question where we had to come up with a phrase of this fertile ground that we're creating. And so I asked them, what is the fertile ground that's come out of this weekend? And here's some of the things they said. That we're not sure who we are, but in that uncertainty is infinite possibilities. Yeah, ooh. There's desire, there's willingness to take the time to do the work that's ours to do, that we have the power, we're committed, we're not relying on any one individual, we're coming into our own, we're thriving, we have a blank slate, so we have the ability to create our identity. We are in a call to live forgiveness. That it's not that it's going to happen or it will happen, it is happening. We are here. One of the themes that I heard repeated over and over are, we're still here, doors are still open. Sweet. I'm happy to hear that. thriving, we're transparent, there's a maturity and an engagement. But I really just, when I looked at that's our fertile ground that we're standing on that came out of it, it just awakened, it really awakened for me what I really wanted to talk about this morning. And I was so happy when, I don't know if you do this every Sunday, I confess I don't recall at my last visit, but when we affirmed the 5 unity principles this morning. As a unity minister, I'm kind of a big fan of them. They make you memorize them in school and stuff. But my favorites, my absolute favorites that I'm always preaching about is actually number 1 and number 2. And my little reader's condensed version that Sam really appreciates, my shortened version is, oh look, I love support. The first one, there's only one presence and one power. I'm not going to say the rest of it. My Reader's Digest condensed version is, God is all there is. Or divinity, or Atman, or the cosmos, or whatever word it is for you, is all there is. And the second principle, I love this. Our essence is of God. Meaning, if God is all there is, then we're it. Right? It's kind of a big responsibility. God is all there is, and we're it. And it says our essence is of God. I've said this a couple times this past week about, in some versions that you read, it'll say there's this spark of divinity within us. Spark is too small. It's like the raisin in the bun, or a little sesame seed on the bun kind of thing. Essence means the ultimate reality. That's what essence is. The natural state of being is our divinity. So we are that. And that's what I saw so alive this weekend, was that over and over and over, when people shared their pain, when they shared their joy, when they shared what they were most proud about, when they shared what they regretted the most, when there was tears of joy coming and tears of sorrow and tears of pain and frustration and happiness and silliness and anything in between, it was all the essence of God in manifest form in front of me. And I just love that. My word is Twitter-pated. I get all Twitter-pated. That's a little joy dance. You do this. Go ahead. Try it. Feels good, doesn't it? I know some of you are like, okay, is she done yet? But it's not. That second principle, that we are God stuff, we are godlings. Seedlings of the divine. We're not all that God is, just like, drops in an ocean. They're the essence of the ocean. They're not all that God is, but they're the essence. And we're the same way. We're the same thing. We are not all that God is, but we are portion, as Emily Katie says, a portion of God made manifest. And so I wanted to, I have to share my Muppet theology around this. Bert and Ernie are two very wise mystics for me from Sesame Street. I learned a lot from them growing up. I'm not sure that my mother appreciated it, but I learned an awful lot from Bert and Ernie. So this is their kind of take on this. And Ernie says, so let me get this straight, Bert. You say that God is above us in the clouds, looking down on us? That's right, Ernie. Funny, Bert. I always thought that God was below us with his hands up our butts. Anybody ever think of it that way? That laughter is this. That's our divinity in manifest form. That humor. That coming alive, that connecting with it. That conversation of Bert's thinking one thing, Ernie's thinking another. Okay. And it wasn't about correcting each other, but it was like, I didn't see it that way. I always thought that God was hand up my butt. And that's how when I follow that through, when I'm done with my laughing and my visual weirdness. I'm thinking about Bert and Ernie, but when I stay with it long enough and I move into it, it really becomes that aliveness as me. And then it becomes that only, if you kind of stretch that metaphor out, those Muppets are only talking when there is the hand available to move it. And it's the same with that divinity. It's only in action when I'm open and available to have it be in action, right? No? Yes? Maybe? I have to always know somebody's listening. So it really becomes a spiritual practice. We that it's almost like to not connect with it as a practice, as an activity. So we know there's this idea that if God is all there is and we are that, which by the way is a universal. You can go to any faith tradition, any religious tradition, and you will find, may have a different word or noun for ultimate reality or God, but in every tradition is this belief that there is an ultimate reality and it's alive in and through and as us. And it's something we have to practice. It's something we have to practice to have it be in activity, to have it be in motion, just like the hand moving the puppet. We have to be in motion and activity with it, and it's a practice. It's like almost like, because if we aren't in practice of it, and I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like and means in a moment, it's sort of like having the Hope Diamond under your mattress, but you don't have money to put food on your table. Right? The other thing that goes on is that sometimes we leave that Hope Diamond under the mattress and don't move into action because there's a responsibility. It becomes a big responsibility. And you can, you can kind of experience what I call divinity burnout. Sometimes people just annoy me. Yeah. Sometimes they just irritate me. Sometimes I don't want to work that hard. Sometimes I'm just a little off. I'm not connected to this idea that my essence is of God, that is my natural, ultimate reality. Sometimes it takes work to know that. It takes work to connect with it. It takes work to be with it, with you, with anybody, when what I'm receiving is less than gentle. When someone says to me, you have nothing to teach me, you have nothing to offer me. How? It's not always my first instinct to move into the expression of the divine. It's a spiritual practice. I have to keep working at it. I have to keep practicing it. And in the meantime, I might experience some burnout because, frankly, sometimes people are annoying. Sometimes I judge them. Sometimes they're in the wrong line at the grocery store. Sometimes they just keep talking and talking and talking. Sometimes they want me to hear their story over and over and over. Oh, yeah. Sometimes I think I'm not doing a very good job. Sometimes I hear, you have nothing to teach me, and inside I go, probably, you're probably right. So it takes some work. And I don't do it alone. I don't do it alone. That's what spiritual community is for. That's what I got to see this weekend, was this practice. That even when the words weren't the same, even when sharing an experience and it looked very different from one person than another person, it didn't matter because we were connected underneath. I was allowing that, like the hand in the puppet, that to be that expression for me. I emptied my hands, I get out of my own way, and I be in activity. And the emptying the hands is one of the most important practices for me. Because if I come into a situation, I come into an experience, I come into something, like some of the work we were doing this weekend, and in my head, I know what's right for you. I know what decision you should make. I know how you should, govern your church. I know how your chaplain program should go. I know how your Sunday service should go, and blah, 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 blah. When I come in with that on my plate, my hands are not empty. My hands are not empty. And so I am not allowing that full expression of my essence to be made manifest. It doesn't mean that you know, the ideas, the divine ideas, the creative ideas that I have won't be made manifest. But I have to be willing to empty my hands and let them go. Do this. Stretch your hands out like that. Really stretch your fingers. Can you feel the letting go when you really stretch them? That's what we do in spiritual community. That's part of that practice. One of the other things that's alive in just about every faith tradition across the globe is that practice of coming back to presence. Is that practice of being present, emptying myself and being with you as you are. Being this. It's amazing what happens when we be curious about what's out there in the world. I empty my hands to see my world anew. How different would your world look if you could really let go of the activity of the mind for just a moment? Doesn't mean you can't take it back. You can. But just for a moment. Just for a moment to know that that love that we've talked about this morning, that we were singing about, is alive. That only love can do that. That our essence is inherently good. Inherently means it's built right in. It's there. You don't have to go find it out here. It's there. We just awaken. But it's a practice. It's a practice of emptying. It's a practice of belonging. It's a practice of listening. I can only listen when I empty. When I empty my hands. Can you put the affirmation up? I empty my hands to see the world anew. Together. I empty my hands to see the world anew. Does that make sense? Yeah. Are we inherently good? Yes. Okay, 25 of you. If you don't know it, I will tell you, you are. It's inherently, it's your essence. You can't not be. No matter how hard you might try. You can't not be. So, I invite you to come this afternoon, even if you came this weekend, if you weren't able to come Friday night or Saturday, and to just be in a contemplative space where if you have a particular, a very specific hurt or issue that you would like to give a voice to and to be heard and to start a forgiveness and release around a specific issue, I invite you to come and you'll be given the opportunity to do that. If you want to come and just hold the space for those people, because the process that we're doing is clearing the space to empty our hands so we can know that, so I can be in the practice of being with you. I have to empty my hands. So come this afternoon, if you can, and even if you just want to come to hold the space and be still and be quiet. It's a very specific practice. It's called a healing circle, but it's not organized the way that you've had some other healing circles during the summer. But it's a community, congregational community for all of you. And the hurt that you want to release could be around something here at church or at home. So just come and be a part of it. Come and bring the essence of who you are. Sorry? February. Oh, February. Thank you. Thank God for people that stand. February 17th, 18th, 19th, I will be back. It is a congregational weekend, a community weekend for that fertile ground that I was talking about. We're going to build on that and begin really clarifying the values, the core values for this community, and getting very specific about what they are and what they mean and how we be in action on those as individuals and as a community. And it's really taking the next steps in creating this community identity. So please come. It's going to be Friday night and Saturday. And it'd be really wonderful for you to come to all of it because it's a continuing process. And I guess there'll be more about that in what's newsletter, emails, however you guys communicate. And finally, I just got a little sign that said TAC. Does that mean what you want me to introduce the TAC team? TAC stands for Transitional Advisory Council. Did you know you had one? Yeah. Okay, good. So if you're on the Transitional Advisory Council, could you stand for me, please? Come on, Nancy. Thank you. Okay, so here's a 4. I think there's a couple more that are absent. The Transitional Advisory Council is here to support this transitional process. And we have meetings and we talk and we, and it's about listening and learning and part of creating, you can sit down if you want, part of creating where we're going. So if you have any questions, go see any of them. There's also board members, and it's time for me to be quiet because we have more singing. So, are we inherently good?
Yes.
Are we the essence of God?
Yes.
We're seedlings of the divine?
Yes.
Yes, we are. Blessings.